WJJL in Niagara Falls, New York, the Niagara Arts and Cultural Center. On the lines, I have one of the COOs and co-founders of Hashtag Sports, often heard Monday and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. It has then since changed to, I believe, Wednesdays at 10 p.m. for a certain segment, and I'm sure he'll tell you all about it. They're found on Instagram, Pinterest. HashtagSports.net is the main site, and also Twitter handle is HTagSports. Welcome, Paul Wineski, here in the Thomas Loop Radio Show, also known as the Closer. Good morning, Paul. How's everything out there?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Tom?
Doing quite well, buddy. Doing quite well. So what do you have planned for this week, this Wednesday?
Well, I don't have as many plans as Marshawn Lynch did the other night, I can promise you that.
Wow.
No, come out for Super Bowl and just looking forward to a great game. A lot of stuff going on with this game, a lot of media surrounding it. Of course, anything that the Patriots do is going to have, world-class media surrounding it. And, of course, the Seahawks are, this generation's 49ers from the looks of it. So it's just kind of a team that everybody's jumped on. So just enjoying some pizza and wings. And to address what you had mentioned before as far as the show segments go, you're right. We have kind of changed up the schedule for Hashtag Sports since the Bills are in a little bit of a lull. That's really where we focus a lot of our coverage, although we cover a lot of sports. So that Monday night segment has really transitioned more to an interview segment that we do Wednesdays at 10, and then we'll also be doing some early Saturday morning coverage. That should be starting sometime in the next week or so. So we'll be picking up that Monday night segment, but it's going to shift to Saturday morning. So that way we can kind of get that cup of coffee with the closer and hammer out sports talk early in the AM.
That's right. His name is Paul Wineski. He is known as the Closer. That's his on-air handle for Hashtag Sports. HashtagSports.net. Check it out on Facebook under Hashtag Sports. Hashtag Sports on Pinterest. Hashtag Sports on Instagram, I believe, and also Twitter at HTag Sports. HTag Sports. Going back, any thoughts on the game? I mean, are we finally able to go in to talk about the game? We're at Wednesday now. It's just a few days away. We're at Wednesday now. Can we start talking about the game now, people?
I know. And it's funny that you bring that up because all I want to talk about is the game. Everything else is just, is kind of, unimportant because it's an issue that's not going to come up for the Super Bowl. We know that, right? There's spotlight on Deflategate, so this is something that is not going to be any impact on the Super Bowl at all. The one thing that I think is most interesting to talk about is the dynamic and the difference between last year's Denver Broncos and this year's New England Patriots.
Yes.
And really, when you look at the team dynamics, it's really not that different a team, except the Patriots defense isn't as good as the Denver defense was last year. So you take a look and you have a quarterback in Tom Brady who is field general, much like Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
You have a dominant tight end, much like Denver did in Julius Thomas.
Yeah.
And Demaryius Thomas at wide receiver is something that the Patriots don't have. They don't have that big dominating target. They're filled with a bunch of guys who are slot receivers, basically lining up at 1, 2, 3. Their run game is occasionally suspect. Denver's was no better last year, not this year. So from a roster perspective, you have to give the edge to Denver. We saw the manhandling that Seattle gave Denver last year.
Yeah,
now, granted, they got a spice up from Percy Harvin, whom really didn't play at all. So they had a nice change-up in the lineup because they made him an integral part of the offensive game plan. Denver didn't have any tape on him. So everything that they were doing was adjusting on the fly. So Seattle doesn't have that advantage this year, but I still just can't see New England Patriots coming out with a win. It doesn't matter how I cut it. Seattle was just too dominant against a better team last year.
Paul Wineski's live with me. He's also known as the Closer. He can be heard on Hashtag Sports on Blog Talk Radio, blogtalkradio.com, Hashtag Sports. Check out the main website, hashtagsports.net, also on Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter. Twitter handle is HTag Sports. If I'm missing anything, feel free to drop in. And if you're just listening and you hear Denver against Seattle, no sweat, because he's only comparing the two teams, the comparisons between Denver of last year was Super Bowl 48, and then this year being, as Tony Bruno calls it, Super Bowl X-Licks. which is 49. I was cracking up when he was saying that, but regardless.
That's funny.
Paul Wineski's with me here. Hall of Fame class. Any thoughts on who goes in there?
Man, please, I don't care if they only put one guy in. Just make it Charles Haley.
Oh, man.
Like, can we just get past this already?
Right.
Like, isn't this a black eye in the NFL? And here's the thing. The NFL always responds, right? You have all these negative stories about the NFL process, the football's pregame, and coaches were saying, well, I didn't know what the process was. Apparently, this is what they do.
Right.
So now the NFL is going to respond, not by altering rules, but although I'm sure they will, and alter the way that footballs are handled prior to a game. I don't doubt that those rules will be adjusted by the competition committee at some point, because that's really what it is a competition committee issue, along with narrowing the field goal posts and whatever else they choose to do. But you're going to see the NFL respond. Again, I understand that the writers have an incredible amount to do with initiations into the Hall of Fame. However, I think the NFL will respond with something very positive this year when it comes to the Hall of Fame, because they have to, right?
Yeah.
This has been such an issue for them that now they need to look and see what way can we make this, how can we put a bow onto a positive year as opposed to the black eye that Deflategate has brought at our doorstep.
We are
so I
seeing
think you're
this.
Going to see Charles Haley get it. I think this is his year because the NFL, in my opinion, needs a good story. And I don't know what better story than the storybook career of Charles Haley, finally getting his due going into the Hall of Fame. It just makes perfect sense to me. And, I heard you played Noah Goki in the Skulls. Never played with Noah, talked to him a lot, played a lot of shows with them separately, and I was on his broadcast a few times.
That's right.
That he does privately. Great guy, love Noah.
Yeah, all WNY Radio. All WNY Radio. He is one of the owners, if not, I think he is the singular owner right now of All WNY Radio, which was started by Scott Loeffler. Those two names go side and side in helping me get to this spot where I'm at right now. And of course, your band was the first guest ever on when this show was on internet format. So this is pretty cool how this all ties together. And getting back to the writers, the voters, and I've said this many times on your broadcasts at Hashtag Sports. The writers didn't do their job. Their deadlines weren't met, and they had no research or content to follow up just because, well, the guy pushed back. And we're seeing that today with, and I'm referring to Charles Haley, and we're seeing that today with Marshawn Lynch. I can't blame Marshawn Lynch a single bit. Do some research. Learn how to write a story. Or if you can't get what you wanted from the football player, any sort of athlete, well, you better well research it and write a good story for tomorrow. That's not on the athlete. That's on you as a journalist for not doing your homework. So, as my message to the writers, the voters of the Pro Football Hall of Fame is get over yourselves. The man has 5 Super Bowl rings.
Yeah, he's the only guy with a Super Bowl thumb ring, So that goes a long way. And unfortunately, you have to, and it's not just a positional dynamic when you talk about the Hall of Fame.
Right.
When you look at the way that they vote people in, if you're going to tell me that Warren Sapp had more impact on the game in his generation than Charles Haley, you're crazy.
Yeah.
And it's not just because they played a similar position, being on the defensive line. It's because Warren Sapp took a media position after he retired from football. Even though he went through a lot of personal struggles, he was able to keep everything positive in the media. He made friends with the writers. So he got voted in. Michael Strahan. Granted, Michael Strahan
very
probably
intelligent.
should have gone into the Hall of Fame. So I'm not going to dispute that. But the fact that he was so coveted going into the Hall of Fame, he had multiple media jobs lined up. That's what these guys do. After they retire, they want those media jobs because those are the people who make those votes, and it impacts their legacy.
Absolutely correct. And to add, the irony of this all is I've been trying to get Charles Haley on the show. I pulled off a couple interviews with great Joe Valerio of ESPN Sports Reporters and Clint Malarchuk recently in the Thomas Hoop Radio show here at WJGL 1440 AM. And he has a media-based company that protects against the media against Charles Haley. It's at that point. If you ever look it up, I won't give you the link or anything on the air, but I was trying the process. I could not believe it, yet it's believable. So now he has everything in place. He also helps with charities, Salvation Army, for example, on Thanksgiving Day, the Red Kettle. and the things like that. He's visible. He's visible in the public, referring to Charles Haley and things like that. But to have a media-based company to protect against media, I mean, how ridiculous is that? I mean, do your job, journalists.
Smart man, unfortunately,
Very.
right? You look at what the media brings and the struggles and the success the media can give you. You have to defend your brand, right? And that's really what this is.
That's right.
You have to defend the Charles Haley brand, because his brand is not just a company. His brand is his entire life. If he writes a book, if he goes on speaking tours, if he wants to do something for charity, if you tarnish your name, because a lot of times your name is all that you have, really, when you break it all down. So he has to protect his name, because it's not Charles Haley Inc., it's Charles Haley. Anything that happens in the media directly impacts his life, because guess what? He doesn't work in the NFL anymore. He doesn't get a paycheck from the NFL. So he has to defend his brand. I think it's a genius idea. I wish more guys did something like that, because, not because they should, but because they almost have to.
Yeah, absolutely right. Paul Wineski, I want to thank you very much. Go ahead and plug away for Hashtag Sports.
Oh, of course. Yeah, you, of course, can catch all the articles, #sports.net, and then, of course, hit the Twitter handle @HTagSports. Really the most accessible ways to get to us, although we're available through anything, Facebook, Instagram. Of course, the podcasts are on air and available for download, listening on any mobile device or desktop or laptop or tablet, whatever you have. So we appreciate the time very much, Tom. Thank you so much.
You got it, Paul. Take care.
All right, talk to you soon.
You got it. Paul Wineski, also known as the closer, here from Hashtag Sports on the Thomas Loop Radio Show for WJJL 1440 AM, Niagara Falls, Buffalo, New York.